Hello, welcome to today's lesson on CRS 01. We'll be looking at the historical setting for monarchy, which can be found in the book of First Samuel 1 to 7, and we'll also be looking at the roles of Eli and Samuel. So these aspects or this historical setting for monarchy will be basically in a narrative form as well as the roles of Eli and Samuel. So I'll basically be telling the story of these two people and alongside the historical setting of Israel's monarchy. So let's start with the historical setting for monarchy, which can be found in the book of First Samuel 1 to 7. Now, before the anointing of kings, Israel was a theocratic nation governed directly by God through various leaders, including judges and priests. Now, this period described in the book of Judges was marked by a cycle of sin, judgment, and deliverance. Now, the nation of Israel before the anointing of kings were basically characterized by decentralized leadership, whereby Israel was led by judges who were appointed by God to deliver the people from their enemies and to guide them in times of crisis. And also, Israel was organized into tribes, with each tribe having its own distinct identity and responsibility. And despite God's deliverance also on the nation of Israel, the Israelites often fell into idolatry and sin, leading to spiritual decline and God's judgment. Now, the opening chapters of First Samuel sets the stage for the rise of monarchy in Israel, situating the reader in a period where the decentralized rule of judges was giving way to a centralized authority of kingship and rulers. Now, this time was marked by tensions in both spiritual and political leadership, and as a result, the nation of Israel faced several challenges such as external threats, internal conflicts, and spiritual apostasy. So, as a result of this, Eli and Samuel, which were key figures in these roles, embody the complexity of these traditions. Now, let's look at the roles of Samuel and Eli one after the other, starting with the role of Eli. So, let's look at Eli's role. How was Eli? Eli was a high priest in Israel, and he had been entrusted with a sacred office to serve at the tabernacle in Shiloh. However, his two sons, which were Hophni and Phinehas, brought shame to the priesthood through their corrupt and disobedient behavior. They abused their positions by taking the best part of the sacrifices for themselves rather than following the proper procedure and offering them to God. And furthermore, they committed sexual immorality with the women who served at the tabernacle, corrupting the sacred space and leading Israel to sin. Now, despite their wickedness, Eli, their father, failed to restrain his son, and God sent a prophet to deliver a message of judgment on the household of Eli. So the prophet declared that Eli's household would be punished for their wickedness and that his sons would die. His two sons, which were Ophni and Phinehas, they were both going to die. Now, the judgment was fulfilled when Israel went to war with the Philistines, and Eli's sons accompanied the army. Despite the presence of the Ark of the Covenant, Israel was defeated and the Ark was captured by the Philistines, and both Hophni and Phinehas were killed in the battle. So when Eli heard the news of Israel's defeat and the capture of the Ark, he was devastated. He fell backward of his chair, broke his neck, and died at the age of 98. So Eli's death marked the end of an era and the fulfillment of God's judgment on Israel's household. The story of Eli serves a cautionary tale about the importance of spiritual leadership and the consequences of disobeying God's commands. So we've looked at the story of Eli. We've looked at the role of Eli. Let's highlight the role of Eli. We've already highlighted the role of Eli in the narrative where I said that he was a priest in Israel. So moving on to the story of Samuel. Moving on to the story of Samuel. Let's quickly look at the story of Samuel. Let me narrate it Now, Samuel was born to Hannah, who was a barren woman who prayed fervently or frequently for a child. Her prayer was answered when Eli met her and God heard her cry for help. And she named him Samuel, meaning the Lord hears, or name of God. Now, Hannah dedicated Samuel to God as a result of the promise she made to God. And after winning him, she brought him to the tabernacle in Shiloh to serve under the high priest Eli. So as Samuel grew, he assisted Eli in the temple, performing various tasks. So one night, while sleeping, Samuel heard a voice calling his name. Thinking it was Eli, he ran to him 3 times before Eli realized that it was God that was calling Samuel. So Eli instructed Samuel to respond, "Speak, Lord, your servant is listening," which Samuel did, and it also marked the beginning of Samuel's prophetic journey. Now, what was Samuel's role in all this? Samuel's role was that one, he anointed kings. It was during his time that the nation of Israel demanded for kings. Now, Samuel anointed Israel's first king, known as Saul, and later he also anointed King David, who replaced Saul after Saul disobeyed God. And also the prophetic ministry, where Samuel's prophetic ministry began with his encounter with God and also continued throughout his life, guiding Israel and its leader. And also, Samuel played the role of judging Israel. He served as a judge, settling disputes and rallying the nation against the Philistine. And Samuel remained faithful to God despite facing challenges and disobedience. So we've looked at Samuel's divine calling and also his early life, where I mentioned Samuel's birth, which was viewed as an answer to Hannah's fervent prayer amidst Israel's spiritual crisis, and also the dedication of Samuel at Shiloh, where Hannah entrusted Samuel to God's service, calling him to a life of prophetic and priestly duty. Now, Samuel's initial encounter with God signaled his unique role as a divinely appointed leader, bringing multiple offices. So now, what was the theological crisis of that? When considering, or while I was narrating the story of Eli, I mentioned the ark was captured. Now, during Eli's tenure, the Ark of the Covenant was captured by the Philistines, and it symbolizes God's rejection of the nation of Israel in response to their sin and leadership failure. And it also served as a devastating crisis and theological turning point for the nation of Israel, because the loss of the ark signified the withdrawal of divine presence from Israel, underscoring the consequences of covenantal unfaithfulness, and also set the stage for Samuel's rise as a reformer, a priest, and a renewed spiritual authority needed to restore Israel's fidelity and hope. So we've looked at the role of Eli and Samuel and also the historical aspects of Israel monarchy. So we've come to the end of today's lesson. I'll see you in the next lesson. Thank you very much.